We are back with Get Down to Business. I'm your host, Shalom Klein. We are the show that is all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And we're thrilled to have with us Dr. Stephen Julius. Dr. Julius, among many, many things, and aside for his private practice, I guess the thing that I hate to say it, but your claim to fame over here is that you are the team psychologist for the Chicago Bulls. Dr. Julius, thanks for joining us on Get Down to Business.
Well, thanks for having me. I need to clarify one thing, though. As of last year, I am no longer working with the Chicago Bulls in that capacity.
Was the psychologist for the Chicago Bulls and is still a pretty awesome guy that's making a difference in the business community and all over Chicago. And you've got a lot of claims to fame, and you're doing a lot of cool stuff. So, Dr. Julius, with that in mind, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
All right. Well, you're welcome to call me Steve. I am a clinical psychologist by training, a child psychologist, and I ran a mental health center, ran a multi-practice, a specialty practice. But since 2003, I've had a company that essentially works on helping organizations maximize performance, both at the company-wide basis, but also enhancing the ability of executives and employees to get work done efficiently and productively.
And, of course, before we let you go at the end of the segment, we'll make sure to get your website. But one of the things that sort of stood out for me in looking at your website is strategic plan. You have that word mentioned a few times. That's something that we always mention on this show that's so important for folks, regardless of their professional aspirations, to have a plan personally, to have a plan professionally. What advice do you have for the listeners out there that are trying to sort of figure things out for their professional career pursuits?
Well, first thing to pay attention to, whether you have a small business or a large business, it is important to consider that fortune favors the prepared mind, which is one of my favorite sayings. Essentially, if you know where you want to go and you know what it is you want to accomplish, then it's much easier to determine how you want to do it. And ultimately, when opportunities present themselves, you're ready to seize them to accomplish that goal. And, it's beneficial whether you're just an individual trying to put together a personal strategic plan or whether you're a small business owner doing the same. It's not an activity that you want to perform in isolation. Surround yourself with key stakeholders or friends and try different ideas out for size. But first and foremost, know what your goal is. And once you know what your goal is, what you want to achieve, then it's a little easier to go ahead and accomplish it.
I think that's very important advice to know what you hope to achieve, and then obviously setting out to actually accomplish that makes that job become so much easier. And Steve, this is it's helpful advice. Tell us, are you here in Chicago?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. And what are the types of people that you typically work with these days?
Well, it tends to fall into three categories. While I'm no longer formally with the Bulls, I still work with a number of professional athletes as well as high-performing amateur athletes around developing and improving their performance, much of which literally does revolve around a strategy. But I also work with executives. Usually they fall into one of two buckets. They're executives who run small businesses who are looking to scale them, or executives who are part of large corporations and they've been charged with some kind of transition, whether it's an acquisition, a merger, a reimagining of how they want to deliver the goods and services that they have. And my job is to help them walk through not only the planning process from the business and operational point of view, but also how to motivate and inspire and lead those the people who work for them in its execution.
So, Steve, real quick, we've got just about a minute remaining, and I want to make sure we get your website in there. But how did you end up working with professional athletes?
Well, it happened almost serendipitously. As I mentioned earlier, I had a practice. I used to clinical practice. I used to get a lot of referrals of high-profile executives. One day I got a referral of a high-profile executive in one of the Chicago sports organizations, and from there it just tended to evolve.
Fantastic. Steve Julius, how can people find your website? How can people learn more about your practice?
Well, I don't have a website, at this point. It's actually going through reconstruction, but I do have an email address.
Oh, that's good. That helps.
S as in Steve Julius at growthplay.com.
We're talking with Dr. Steve Julius, who's a fascinating guy. Talked to us a little bit about strategic planning and how you need to, networkers, entrepreneurs, you need to articulate what you want to achieve and then set out to getting it done. Great advice for all of our networkers that are out there. Great advice, as we always do on Get Down to Business. We're talking all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking with Chicago City Treasurer Stephanie Neely. This is the show that is all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Thanks for tuning in. After the break, Chicago City Treasurer Stephanie Neely. You're on with Get Down to Business.